Hi, how are you? It's Ellen Wright from Wright Family Law Group. Today, we are going to attack the Massachusetts long form financial statement. If you have a family court or divorce case in Massachusetts and you make $75,000 or more, you have to fill out the long form financial statement for your case. So I'm going to walk you through the nuts and bolts of it, best practices, how to do it. And we're just going to sort of take it step by step. It's a 9-page form as opposed to the short form, which is 4 pages. A lot of times people look at it, they get super overwhelmed. It's not that scary. We're going to take it page by page, and I am going to walk you through. So the first thing we're going to do is just search it up on the internet. If you Google Massachusetts long form financial statement, you will find it on the Massachusetts trial court page. What you're going to do is go ahead and click the link for the long form. It'll take you to this page. And again, we're going to click the link for that form and it'll pull it up in a handy dandy PDF. Here you go. All right. So when you're filling this out, what you really need to have handy are a couple of things. The first thing is you're going to need your W-2 from the prior year if you have a job. If you are self-employed and you have 1099s, you're going to need those 1099s. If you're the type of person that's self-employed or you don't have a business and you don't have any of that, that's okay too. They just want to see that if you have a trail to document your chain of income that you have that. But if you have your prior year's W-2 or 1099s, that's huge. All right, so we're going to start by talking about page 1. So up here in the corner, you're going to pick your division. What county is your case in? Pick the appropriate county. If you have a docket number and you know what that docket number is, you can type that in right up there in the right-hand corner. Caption of your case, plaintiff, defendant. Put your name on the appropriate line. Put the opposing party on the appropriate line. This section, personal information, they want your full name, social security number. I tell my clients, do not put your complete social security number on the long form. You want to redact the first 6 digits. Only include the last 4. So XXX-XX-1234 or whatever the last 4 digits of your social security number is. Address, city, state, zip. That's pretty self-explanatory wherever you are living. Telephone number, date of birth, and the number of children living with you. Plug that information in. Occupation and employer. If you are a teacher and you work for the city of Peabody, put that right on in. If you are unemployed or if you're a stay-at-home parent or something like that, that's fine too. Just type that in, homemaker, employer, unemployed, and then leave the rest blank. Okay, do you have health insurance coverage? Yes or no? If you have health insurance, go ahead and write that on in that line. Income. Now, in Massachusetts, child support and alimony are always calculated weekly. So all of the figures listed for income and expenses for that matter are going to be weekly. So on these lines where it says base pay from salary wages, go ahead and put in that weekly amount. If you get paid bi-weekly, you're going to have to divide it out by 2. If you get paid monthly, divide it out by 4. Or 4.3 actually. There's an uneven number of weeks in any given month, so 4.3 is the more exact way to do it. Overtime. Maybe it varies for you. Maybe sometimes you get it, sometimes you don't. Put in probably a historical average, maybe a 6-month average of the overtime you might have worked, and just make sure to keep a separate page, because you can write explanatory notes to your financial statement. So just sort of tick mark it and write a note. If you have a part-time job, again, maybe you have the same hours every week, maybe you don't. But you can only really write one number in there. So the best way to do it really is to take, as I say, the historical average, make a tick mark, leave a note to document where that number came from. Self-employment, Schedule A. The self-employment number that gets listed on Section 2D has to tick and tie back to your Schedule A. Now, I have a separate video on how to complete a Schedule A if you are a self-employed person. So go ahead and reference that Schedule A video if you have to complete line D for a Part 2, and that will give you some guidance and coaching on how to do that. Tips, same thing as before. Maybe they vary. So put in your best estimate, just leaving a trail of how you came up with the figure. Commissions, bonuses, dividends, interest, trusts, annuities. You need to leave, again, the trail. Take an average, whatever you can do. For that, just remember to make sure the number is reported weekly. Social Security. Social Security benefits are pretty much always paid monthly, so divide that figure out by 4.3 if this applies to you to get that number. Public assistance, welfare. I'm not sure actually why that is on the long form, because if you're making more than $75,000 a year, you really shouldn't be receiving public assistance. But it is there. Again, the number has to be weekly. Child support and alimony, weekly. Rental income from income producing property. If you have rental income of any sort, again, rents are paid monthly. So you're going to have to complete a Schedule B. There will be a video on my YouTube channel, if there isn't already, on how to complete a Schedule B. So keep a lookout for that, if that applies to you. Royalties, other rights. If you wrote a book or you have any kind of stream of royalty income, that gets reported. Again, weekly is the key. If you report your week income any other way, it's not going to make sense. Contributions from any household members. If you have a family member living with you, or maybe a friend or someone who's contributing towards household expenses, that money that gets listed there. And if you have any other sort of income, there's lines to describe it and report it. Again, weekly is the key. Now for this next section 3, this is where it's important to have your pay stub. If you have a job and it is applicable to you, have your most recent pay stub handy. Again, up here in the left-hand corner, you're going to pick the appropriate division of where your court is. What you need to do is figure out, and some payroll companies designate things in a clear way. Sometimes it's not entirely clear what the deductions are on your paycheck. So if you need clarification, reach out to your HR or your payroll department to make sure you understand what's what. But we need to know what your federal and state income tax withholding is from your paycheck, as well as your unemployment, your FICA, Medicare, if there's a medical insurance deduction, dental, vision, union dues. If it doesn't apply to you, that's fine. Just make sure that you're not leaving any lines blank. If it's 0, put a 0. Make sure that you just don't leave something empty. We just always have to have a number on the line. Going down the list here, deferred compensation. That is another word for a 401k retirement plan. Credit union, if there's any payments or loan payments that are being made or withheld, or maybe you're squirreling money away, that gets reported there. Charitable contributions, self-explanatory. Life insurance, again, everything has to be weekly. Double check, triple check that everything is weekly. It's also not a bad idea to print off this financial statement. Some people do better with like a hard piece of paper with a pencil to write the notes, to scratch out, to leave a trail before maybe typing it up. So whatever method works best for you, you do you when it comes to filling this out. All right, so this section 5, moving on, is where you're going to need your W-2 and or your 1099s from the prior year. You have to report your gross income from the prior year. Now, if you are filling this financial statement out in maybe like January or February, you're probably not going to have your W-2 from your job at year end. So that's okay. You're going to use the year before that. So the last year that you have is what you're going to use. Just make sure you're leaving a trail and you're making a note that even though you're filing your financial statement in February, the W-2s that attached for the prior year are not actually the prior year. Maybe you don't have them yet. That's okay. They're the most current and recent ones that you do have. Number of years you have paid into Social Security. Most people start working when they're like, 14, 15, 16 years old. And you're going to need to figure out the number of years that you have paid into Social Security. So if you are 46, you started working when you were 15 years old, 46 minus 15 is 31. So you have paid into Social Security for 31 years. If you're a teacher or like some other municipal worker and you've been there long term, they don't pay into Social Security, they pay into a state retirement system. So be aware of that. Your best bet when in doubt is to log on to Social Security, get a copy of your most recent Social Security statement. That'll give a history of your contribution history. All right, Section 6, weekly expenses not deducted from pay. Some expenses are monthly, others are going to be weekly. So rent, mortgage, your cell phone, your electric bill, these are all monthly expenses. Weekly expenses are more often than not your groceries and your gas and things like house supplies and other stuff like that. So again, consistency is key. Weekly, rent, mortgage, whatever you're paying, you're going to divide that monthly amount out by 4.3. If you have no rent, but you're paying a mortgage, make sure you're putting a 0 on the line and you're not leaving it blank. All right. Again, if some of these are not applicable to you, don't leave it blank. Write 0. Homeowners, tenant insurance, if you don't have it, put a 0. All right, things like food, house supplies, laundry, dry cleaning. Food, I had a client one time tell me that his food bill was $650 a week, and it was just himself. And I'm like, well, that's really high for groceries. Even with inflation and all, $650 a week is like really, really high for groceries. I'm like, what are you eating? Well, come to find out, he dines out a lot. So he's eating out like every night, basically. So if the expense is extraordinarily high and not really reasonable, be prepared to defend those numbers. Moving along, clothing, life insurance, medical insurance. Make sure that you're not double counting medical insurance. This is a common mistake. So this section under here is weekly expenses not deducted from pay. I would say most times people have the medical insurance deducted through their job. So it comes out of their paycheck, and there's a line item for for the medical insurance on the pay stub. Make sure that you're not reporting it here on line E and down here in this other section, because that's confusing and it's going to sort of screw everything up. It's really one or the other. Do you have a plan through your job where the deduction comes out of your paycheck? Or maybe you're on a Commonwealth care plan where you pay it outside of your paycheck and that you send the check yourself. Make sure you're reporting the medical insurance in the right section. Same thing really with the dental and vision. Scrolling along here, uninsured medical, uninsured dental, copays. Whatever your copay is, if you aren't a healthy person or you've got 6 kids and you're at the doctor a lot, those copays add up. So make sure that we're reporting those accurately. Again, the number has to be reported weekly. So if you're at the doctor's 3 times a month and your copays are, I don't know, $60, then you have to sit back and figure that those copays are going to be $15 a week, taking a monthly average of about $60 a month, figuring it out weekly. Moving along here further down, motor vehicle expenses. This is sort of a pet peeve of mine with these trial court financial statements, and this often throws people for a loop. So there's a line for motor vehicle expenses. Well, okay, but under there, you've got it broken down by fuel, insurance, maintenance, and loan payments. Outside of those 4 buckets, there really isn't anything motor vehicle expense related. It's if you've got a car and you're paying expenses, it's in one of these 4 buckets. So this line here for motor vehicle expenses, it really makes no sense. What you want to do is put 0 there and then break it down for your weekly gas, your weekly insurance. Again, insurance monthly expense, divide it out. Maintenance, oil changes. If you have a jalopy and you have to repair it a lot, you're going to be taking an average of your repair bills and then dividing it out further to get a weekly amount. All of your oil changes, repairs, all of that gets lumped into that maintenance category. Loan payments. If you own your car, your loan payment gets reported on this line. If you lease your car, that is a different story. It's not a loan, it's a lease. And that's going to get reported in another section. But it's a motor vehicle expense nonetheless. Entertainment, vacation, self-explanatory. Take a historical average, or if you're squirreling money away for vacation, whatever you're saving, report it on that line. Cable TV. All right. Most people who have any kind of a cable TV package have the internet and maybe a landline bundled in. If you've got bundled services, what you probably want to do is put 0 here, and then down below where it says other, you might put internet, for example, cable TV, phone, or a lot of the times like they have an alarm as well. All right, those those are services that are often bundled. So you're going to take your monthly, divide it out to get weekly, and report it under that other section. If you have just cable TV, then go ahead and report that number there. Child support, if that's an expense for you, go ahead and list it. Daycare expense. This is a very important number. So, and it needs to be accurate, because if you have kids, daycare is an excludable expense when it comes to the child support guidelines. So, child support guideline recap: health insurance, dental insurance, vision, daycare expenses, and child support orders paid for other children that are not a subject of the family court action that we're dealing with are all deductions for child support guidelines purposes. So if you're paying daycare expense, make sure that you're reporting it and you're not overlooking it, and make sure that the number is accurate. Children's education. Do you have kids in college? Are you paying a tuition? That needs to get reported there. Education for yourself. Are you in college, or do you have to take maybe continuing education classes for whatever your profession or skills or training, your line of work? If you do, then this is where that all gets reported. Actually, never mind. Only your personal education, likely post-secondary education, or maybe you're taking some non-credit classes just for personal growth and development, that gets reported there. If you have to take CPE or CLE or any required continuing education, that actually gets reported on this line here. So I take back what I said earlier. Moving along, down into the section employment-related expenses, uniforms, travel, expenses that are not reimbursed, all get listed out. Lottery tickets, charitable contributions, children's allowance. Again, we've got to make sure that the numbers are weekly, and if you're putting a figure down, leave a trail on how you came up with it, whether you took a rolling average or otherwise. Maybe you have to travel far to visit your kids. That there's a line item for that as well. And then, of course, we've got the catch-all category for other expenses that don't fit into one of the above buckets. Go ahead and list them there. Counsel fees, amount retainer paid to your attorney. Whatever your retainer was, go ahead and type that in. Legal fees incurred to date. Look at your most recent bill, or if you're not sure, ask your lawyer and they can put that figure in for you. Anticipated range, talk to your lawyer and figure out what that should be, but leave that section for them. Assets. Most people have a house, a condo, or something that gets reported in this section A. If you don't, leave it all blank. Just put zeros in these sections, and that's fine. Even if your name isn't on the house, maybe you still have an interest in it. So if you have a house with your wife and maybe she bought it before you were married, I've seen people list the title. They still may have a marital interest in the house, even though the title's in her name. So you can go ahead and write however the title is at the Registry of Deeds. If you're not sure, leave that blank and leave that for your lawyer, and they can fill that in for you. But if you know the information, you can go ahead and fill it in. The purchase price of the property is what you paid for it. Year of purchase, that's self-explanatory. The assessed value of the property is on the city or town website for the assessor's office. They have that information. Find the most recent assessment that the town has on the property, and you can put that number in on that line. And then also include the date of the last assessment. Fair market value of the property. If there's no appraisal or comparative market analysis that is done by a broker, the best way to put a fair market value on a property is to either look at Zillow or Redfin. Or you could even take an average between the two numbers. You go ahead and use whatever method you want, as long as you leave a trail, and the number is reasonable. You're going to go ahead and back out the first mortgage. If there's a second mortgage, that gets deducted as well. So you will need a copy of your mortgage statement. If you don't have a copy of the mortgage statement, or maybe you don't have access to them, make your best guess. And that will give you a rough idea of what your equity is in the house. Real estate. All right. If you have a vacation or a second home, even if it's a timeshare, that gets listed here. You're going to be filling out all of the same information that I talked about in this first section under your primary residence. Motor vehicles. Cars, trucks, ATVs, snowmobiles, tractors, motorcycles, boats, recreational vehicles, aircraft, farm machinery. This section only allows you to list 2 motor vehicles. If you have more than 2, you're going to need to list it out on a separate sheet of paper using this same format. Type, make, model, the purchase price, year of purchase, and the fair market value, and the amount of any loan that might be associated with the motor vehicle. And again, if it's 0, that's fine. Write 0. All right. Pensions. Now, this is confusing, and this is important. I think that this is sort of a hiccup again on this trial court form, but a defined benefit plan is a pension. A defined contribution plan is not. A 401k is a type of defined contribution plan. If you have a pension, it's going to get listed under defined benefit plan. Defined contribution plan is listed here under Section C, pensions, and it's listed again here under other assets right here. Maybe you have 2 401ks, I don't know. If you only have 1, you're going to list it under this section, not under Section C, pensions. Now, the other thing to be aware of is that a pension, if it is a true pension, they're very difficult to value. It's not like a 401k where you can just look at the statement and say, oh, it's worth $50,000. It's more tricky than that because it's a type of annuity stream. In a lot of cases, you need an actuary to value a pension. So if you have a pension, and you don't know the value and you don't have an actuary to do that, current balance value, put unknown / pending appraisal, because you have to have, you have to really get someone who knows what they're doing and knows how to value a pension plan to appraise it. Checking accounts. These are all really straightforward. But the one thing that you need to be aware of when you're filling out not just your long form, but your short form too, or any financial schedule with the trial court for the financial statement purposes, is that the financial statement is a snapshot in time. So people get jobs, people lose jobs. You spend money, you make money. And your financial statement is always a work in progress. So before you go to court, your attorney should be asking you to update your financial statement. Hey, we haven't had an updated financial statement from you in 4 months. Let's talk about the numbers. Did you change jobs? Did you get a raise? Are your expenses the same? What has changed? So the amount in your checking account should not be the same as what was in your checking account 4 months ago. So these numbers always need to be updated. Again, it's a picture in time. If on April 1st, you have $5 in your checking account on April 1st, and on April 5th, you've got $5,000, the picture is as of today, okay? So you want to bear that in mind. Same thing with your savings accounts, cash on hand, certificates of deposit. You've got to be listing the institution, which is another name for the bank. The account number. Do not put the complete account number on your financial statement. Redact out everything except the last 4 digits. You're going to write the listed beneficiary on the account, if any, and again, the current balance, like I had mentioned. Certificates of deposit, credit union accounts, funds held in escrow. Is there anybody holding money for you? Is there a bank holding money for you? That's not to be overlooked. Stocks, bonds, bond funds, so maybe Robinhood, E-Trade, if you've got any of those types of accounts, those get listed there. Cash and brokerage accounts, Schwab, money market accounts. If you've got questions about how accounts should sort of be listed or go into these different buckets, check with your attorney. Savings bonds, IRAs, KEO. A KEO is a type of retirement plan, not that common anymore. Profit sharing, deferred compensation, we talked about that. It's another word for a 401k or maybe a 403b type of plan. Other retirement plans, maybe you've got something else not listed. Annuity, if that gets listed there. Life insurance, cash value. Now, there's 2 types of life insurance. There's term, and then there is whole life. If you have a term life insurance policy, that does not get listed on your financial statement. So make sure before you go writing numbers down for life insurance, you know what you have and what we're talking about. A term policy does not have a cash value. You can't cash it in for any money. Whereas if you have a whole life cash value life insurance, that can be traded in for money. So make sure you know what you're talking about. You have the appropriate documents and you're not guessing at what type of life insurance that you have. And if you do have a whole life, make sure you have an updated statement that tells you what the cash value is, because that has to get listed right here on your financial statement. Judgments, liens. Did a creditor sue you in court and get a judgment against you? If you owe someone money in the form of a judgment or a lien, that gets listed here. Pending legacies and or inheritances. If you are slated to inherit money, that is supposed to get listed here. The one thing I will say about inheritances is that people change their minds. So maybe your favorite aunt today is going to leave you everything, but maybe you get into a fight with her in 6 months and she disinherits you. It's not really pending unless the person has actually deceased. So when we talk about pending legacies, if you're supposed to be getting money from a will or someone bequeathed you some assets, and you're waiting for the estate to pay you out, that gets listed here. It's not for auntie who left you money in her will. It's not vested. She hasn't passed. She could change her mind and give it to someone else. So be aware of that. Jewelry, contents of safe deposit box. These things are self-explanatory. Whatever you have gets listed. Again, not super common on the financial statements that I see. Firearms, collections, tools, equipment, crops, livestock, home furnishings, arts and antiques, other. Whatever you have, list it out. Take your best guess at what it's worth. And we can take it from there. Just make sure if you have firearms and you're going to list maybe $10,000 in guns, have a list of what you have in terms of firearms. Maybe you have a really rare antique shotgun that's worth a lot of money, and whereas it's not like a whole collection of other things. Make sure that you have a handle on what we're talking about. Same thing with tools, equipment. When you throw a number down there and it's some big number, what is it comprised of? Is it socket wrenches? Do you have, motor vehicle lifts? What are we talking about in terms of tools? Sometimes these things, if they're worth a lot of money, they need to be appraised. So make sure that we have a list if we need it for a further breakdown. Other, please specify catch-all categories for other assets that may not be listed. Again, these are really comprehensive, but if there is anything that there isn't a bucket for it, you can go ahead and list it there. Now, this is the liabilities section. You do not list mortgages in this section. Your car payment, your loan, does not get listed in this section. That's even though it's a debt, those are listed in other sections on this long form. This section is primarily for credit cards, medical bills, personal loans. Maybe you owe to friends or family. Balloons. And maybe there's other like installment type of debt that you have taken out, like a Home Depot card or Bernie and Phil's furniture, whatever you have, it's going to be getting listed in this section. So if there isn't a bucket for it elsewhere on the financial statement, it's got to get listed here. So maybe you have a Citibank card, and it's, LLB, right? It's a credit card. Date incurred. I will ask people when they opened the account because that's important. Maybe it was premarital, or maybe it was before the birth of your child, depending upon what your case is. Let's just say this credit card happened in 2014, and they still have the account open, I will put in parentheses open revolving, meaning you can still borrow against it and make payments on it. Amount due. And again, when you update your financial statement, these numbers could change. But we need to know how much is due on the card. So maybe it's $5,000. Weekly payment. Credit cards normally get paid monthly. You get a monthly statement for your bill. So, I don't know, maybe you're paying $100 a week on this, $400 a month. I don't know, whatever it is, you got to list it out. Now, I see a lot of times people might have more than one Citibank card, right? So if you have a couple of Citibank cards or a couple of Discover cards or whatever, make sure that there's some way to differentiate that on your financial statement. So maybe it's Citibank American Airlines. Make sure that you're setting out what we're talking about, because on this particular section, there's no way to list your account number. We have no way to, if we call everything Citibank, there's no way to really know. So make sure that you're doing that. And you want to be mindful that all of your weekly payments, when you're putting it in for your installment debt, your unsecured liabilities, they get totaled up here down at the bottom. And this figure actually feeds in to your financial statement, or at least it should. There's a section up here where it should be going into your All right, I take that back. This is actually another difference between the long form and the short form. On the short form, this total liabilities number feeds into the expense figure for liability payments on the short form. It does not do that on this form, actually. So that's fine. That takes us to the 9th and final page, which is where you sign off that the financial statement is complete, it's true, it's accurate, you're not withholding any information. You also are going to need to have your financial statement notarized. If you have an attorney, your attorney in all likelihood is a notary and can notarize it for you. If you don't have an attorney, you'll have to take it to like a bank or some other notary outfit where they can notarize your financial statement for you. And then if you have a lawyer, your lawyer will be signing off on this last section down at the bottom of page 9. You're going to go ahead and click Save as PDF. It will save a clean PDF to your computer in your downloads folder. And what you want to do is send this to your attorney, print it, keep a copy of it for your own records so that when it's time to update it, you're not fishing for it, you can't find it, and it's easy to sort of get your hand on the numbers so you can update them accordingly. So that is the long form in a nutshell. If you have any questions about it, reach out to your attorney. And I hope that this video was really helpful. Enjoy your day.